Today, in How Women Build and What It Really Takes, I have the pleasure of being joined by Coach Sanjukta, who will be sharing the behind the scenes of her journey from employment to entrepreneurship. I'm also super excited because today is our first interview where we are being joined by a student from Essex Business School. So, welcome, Araba. It's great to have you with us today. Araba will be supporting the research into the rise in female entrepreneurship, which obviously these interviews are going to be feeding into, ultimately giving us a better picture of how women are shaping the current entrepreneurial landscape. So let's dive in. Welcome, Sanjukta. Please tell us a little bit about the focus of your business, how long you've been running it, and also what you did beforehand.
Okay. Hi, Maria. Thank you so much. And hi, Rava. Nice to meet you too. So I'm Sanjukta Mitra. I'm a life and a career coach, and I actually work with ambitious women who are navigating returning to work, career transitions after a break, or even from their existing roles to help them break free from burnout, get clarity, and define success on their own terms. I am an ICF-accredited coach, and I've had 18 years of experience prior. I started my career in media, marketing, and advertising. I took a break when I had my daughter, and then I worked in recruitment for a while. I worked with a coach myself and made my own career pivot, and that's what I help other women do now.
Wonderful. And so that's how long have you been running your business?
So the business I set up about 4 years back, but I think, if you kind of connect the dots, I've realized a lot of women who've made this transition, Maria, you probably have experience as well. Some of the things that we do on a day to day, the coaching, I think is something that we've inherently done in our previous jobs as well. And I've seen kind of connected the dots back to how this was probably what I should have done from the beginning. But yeah, it's, you always find your way eventually.
Fantastic. So I would love to know, what was your key catalyst? What were some of the events that have led you to finally realize that that's it? I'm quitting my job, I'm starting my business.
My primary trigger, motherhood. I had already been feeling a bit burnt out in my previous job, but it's that thing where you push yourself, you don't think anything else is possible. It's scary to think, if I don't do this, what else can I do, right? But when I became a mom, like my daughter was born very premature, and that was a wake up call for me. It was a trigger. And then with that came identity shifts, realizations, kind of an existential crisis where I was like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And what do I want to be doing, right? I think it's that thing where you want to do something that's meaningful to you. Redefine what some of these terms mean to us, right? Like success, balance, freedom, working, all of that, because we are so conditioned to follow a very linear path. So when I started my career in my 20s, it was school, college, university, and the next step is start working. And you don't really have time to really think through what is it that you really want to do. It was at that point when I finished university, I wanted to, of course, start working. And that was exciting at that point. Advertising is something that I was interested in. And funnily enough, the part of advertising that I was really interested in was consumer research, consumer study, understanding how people think, why they make the decisions and the choices they make. And that kind of drew me to advertising at that point without really knowing what the other aspects of advertising and media planning that I've done. What does that entail, really? But obviously, once you start working, you realize, okay, what's meant for you and what's not meant for you. For me, it was 7, 8 years into working that I realized, okay, I think something's not right. Something's not clicking. And this, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of our life, but you don't really acknowledge that. You're scared to acknowledge that even and say it aloud, right? And then you need that external trigger to kind of shake you up and say, okay, you know what, this is it. There is fear and, it is going to rock the boat, but we can figure out what we want to really do.
So I'm curious, because you said you started your business about 4 years ago. Did COVID play part in your starting?
Yes. So I think that was the second trigger. So, when my daughter was born, she was very premature. She was in the NICU for about 3 years. Obviously, that, like I said, was my main catalyst. I decided to take some time off from work completely. Took about 3 years break to be a mom and, be there, with when my daughter was really young. When she started nursery, I knew I wanted to get back to work. And at that point, the first thing that came to me was recruitment for the advertising and tech industry, because those are roles that I understood. While I did that, there was the company that I joined was a boutique recruitment agency. So there was a values fit, there was flexibility. Those were things that I was looking for. But I realized that it was not something I was passionate about. And I've realized over time, those are the few things, like I think strengths, values, and passions are some of the things that are important for you to kind of find what's really meaningful to you and what motivates you. And so then that's when I decided to dig a bit deeper and figure out what I was really passionate about. And that's the point where I worked with a coach. And I realized that, coaching was something that I would be good at, and something that I know that would really motivate me. And again, that was the next level. There was the next hurdle there. Then again, there's fear that, okay, you've already pivoted your career. You've started doing something. Do you want to again leave that and make another switch? Right. And those fears are always there. And then COVID happened. During COVID, there was no place for recruitment because people were losing jobs and the way we work was changing. So I was like, okay, if I have to make a change again, like it's either now or never. So I said, okay, let me try. That's when I went and did a coaching course. I got my certification. I did my assessments, and I used that time, and I became more and more sure of, okay, this is definitely what I want to do. So then post COVID in 2000, up my practice, and the rest is, of course, there were ups and downs the first couple of years, but yeah, it's been a learning curve.
I'm curious, as you were starting to get more and more clarity on, yes, coaching is the path that I want to pursue, and you started doing the qualifications. What concerns or fears did you have about starting the business? What was going on for you?
Yeah, the usual questions like, what if I failed? Moving from employment to setting up your own practice or your own business, that is a mindset shift in itself. I've always been in a family. My parents have worked in with companies in the corporate world. I had worked with big advertising agencies. My husband's working with a big company. So that's my experience. My family, my friends, the people I know have always worked with people. I didn't know too many people who own businesses, right? And so I think that was my mindset. So that was a huge shift for me, firstly. Secondly, of course, the fear of, what if I fail? Like, what if it doesn't work, right? Again, you're rocking the boat. There's no kind of, the financial side of it is, of course, a big thing, because my husband was really supportive, even when I was trying to make those changes. But it is something that, the finances are something that we needed to look at as well, right? So that was a fear there. Then, of course, the imposter syndrome. Am I enough to do this? Why would people come to me to get coaching done? There are other people who have more experience, there are other people who've been around longer, other people who've been in HR and coaching, have set up their own companies. Why would they come to me from a completely different background? So all those kind of fears, right, that play on you. My husband was supportive. I had a coach at that point as well. I think kind of figuring out what those fears were and kind of, unfolding and being sure of, this is what I want to do and I have to do it despite the fear. What I've learned is that confidence and the imposter syndrome is, there's always going to be low confidence. There's always going to be imposter syndrome. But the more you do and the more action you take, that's how the confidence builds, because you see evidence of you doing the work, evidence of you working with the client, and whatever field, whatever change you make, if it's a new field or a new business or a new company, there is going to be that fear. And, you can only eliminate the fear, I feel, by doing and taking action, because you see evidence of, you build that experience, because not everyone comes in with experience. Like when we started work, we didn't have experience, right? You build that over time. So I think that's been a great learning for me. And then, of course, the whole business side of things. If you set up your business, where do I start? How do I get about it? Instead of looking at the whole picture, and while it is good to have that vision and what you want to achieve, is to break it down into smaller steps and say, okay, fine, I'm going to do it one thing at a time, one step at a time, and build on that. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's another thing that I had to navigate through, is perfectionism. That's linked to the fear of failure. Again, we're conditioned to believe that you can't fail if you try something. You can't give up. Everything has to be perfect. But in reality, it doesn't work like that.
Well, yes, I love that. So part of it is actually lack of role models in the family, in the society, who have this, and you're feeling like I'm the first one. There's the imposter syndrome and lack of confidence, and the financial consideration. So how have you mitigated some of that? You said, the imposter syndrome and confidence There is no other way but to take action and learn that you can, evidence that you are capable. What about some of the other things? How have you mitigated the financial insecurity that comes with starting a business?
Two things there actually. One is, of course, the financial part of it. I had to do some money mindset work. Many of us have a very unhealthy relationship with money. I know I for sure had that. There is going to be ups and downs in any business. If your finances are not going to be as smooth sailing as it would be if you're working with a company getting regular income at the end of the month. So there is a shift there that happens because that's what I was used to. I had a regular monthly income and there was stability and there was some kind of relief in that because I didn't have to worry about, okay, what's going to happen next month, you know? So I think that shift takes some time. One of the things I started doing is that looking for role models around me who've made that shift or who are in that business space, who are navigating similar paths, and what has their experience been, to look for proof that this is possible, like what's possible for you, right? To open your mind to that, because otherwise, if we don't see what's possible, then it's difficult to even take the action, right? My other things that I had to work through is networking was a big block for me. Never really enjoyed networking in my previous role in media planning and advertising. The way we approached networking at that point was very different from how I do it now. And you know, as I started going to more networking events and I worked with other women who've made a similar shift, I recognized that it's similar fears, similar situations that different people have navigated, and they've come out the other end doing well, doing something meaningful, where they feel fulfilled at the end of the day. It meets their needs, their values, their strengths, their passions. One of the books that I read at that point was this book called Ikigai. It's a Japanese book. It's about finding that one thing which is really meaningful to you. And that really helped. So that was, I think that was more motivating to me than the financial fear and, you know, the other fears that I had. One of the biggest things was for my daughter, right? To let her know that it is possible to do what you want to do, build a career that you enjoy, where you can have a family, especially for women, where you shouldn't have to choose between either a family or a career.
And what was the reality check for you?
The reality check for me was two things. One is that things are not going to be perfect. Secondly, things are not going to happen overnight. So we have to build in a certain amount of resilience. But I think the reality check, there are promises made about how things can happen. You know, you, for example, for coaches, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, where you can get 10K months. The focus was on 10K months, but not on the process of reaching those 10K months. And then there was a lot of stuff about manifesting, which is great. And I believe in that. It's also about the work that you have to put in. And everyone has to find their own path. So all of our journeys are different. What's right for me need not be right for you. Those are the few things that have been reality checks for me. It's going to take time. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a learning process. But you have to believe that it's going to work. If you believe in what you're, you know, where you're headed, build that vision in, then you can make it happen, even if it takes time.
Such an important point that you've made there in terms of looking around to see what's possible, but also being realistic in terms of those expectations.
That's the thing, right? It's so the 10K months is great. You know, I'm not taking away from that. But the reality check is that your vision and your goal has to be what works for you, given your life, your other responsibilities. Like you have to see what works for you first, build up to that, and then you can keep building up. But it's not going to be a direct, you know, jump. Not to just look at the results, but to, you know, pay attention to the journey itself. And, you know, if something has worked, if something hasn't worked, there's learning in every step. So to incorporate that and only, you know, you just grow from there, right? Is to build in that resilience.
Do you find that there are any specific challenges that you face as a female in the entrepreneurial landscape?
I think some of it is internal. Something that I see with a lot of my clients, and it's been my lived experience as well, is things like confidence, imposter syndrome, is the belief that I'm enough, I'm worthy. Those are the things that we all had to work through. And I'm sure men have that as well. I'm not saying that they don't, but I think it's something that I feel we have to work on a lot more, which is internal. And externally, in my personal experience, I've been really fortunate in networking and things like that. Has really helped to see other women who've been on that similar journey. That's really helped. But I think role modeling other women who've made that shift, I think is very important, and not just men, right? Of course, men have their own challenges, but there's something that doesn't match with how we're built and the work culture that we have to try and fit into. And I think it's about figuring that out, matching your energy with your work, with your flow, with the flexibility, with the freedom. And the other thing is support in terms of funding, which we have to navigate. I think there are things available nowadays more than before, but so you have to navigate that in terms of that you can get, in terms of balancing work and family. And if you are moving to business, while it is something that we really enjoy, the work is not lesser. You're actually probably working more than you were in a 9 to 5 role. So balancing that with your other priorities in life, whether that's yourself, whether it's your family, whether it's your child. But women, we tend to put ourselves last. And that's something that we have to obviously navigate.
How did you balance these competing priorities? A lot of women go into entrepreneurship because of the need for flexibility, including myself. And then you actually find that there is a lot to be done and you often work harder than in a corporate job. How do you know how to prioritize it? And what do you put first? Do you put your business first? Do you put your family first? How do you figure that out?
There's no right or wrong answer for that. You have to be really, really clear on where you're headed, have your priorities, on what your priorities are, on a day-to-day, on a week-to-week, on a month-to-month basis. And that includes not just your work priorities, but your overall priorities in life as well. You need to build that into your schedule and the work that you need to do. I have a family. My husband's been really supportive. We've figured out a routine that works for us. My daughter is older now, so that helps because she's much more independent than someone who has a small child baby. You have to be okay with being really, really focus and narrow down on what your priorities are. Saying no to people, having boundaries, being able to delegate, being able to let go of things, eliminate things from your work, which is a good to do, but not a have to do. I don't think anyone really has that perfectly done at any point, and there are always days when things are all over the place, but then you have to keep doing that reality check for yourself, saying, okay, what didn't work and what worked? What happened on that day when it was chaotic? And what can I do to eliminate that the next day? Right. I think it's a learning process.
It's a constant practice, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alignment and being okay with it being not perfect.
And saying no to people, right? Boundary and saying no. I think that's like really hard to do. But the more you do it and you get better at it and you learn.
Yeah, and I think that's not really something that we have to practice so much in employment. I think in employment, the more helpful you are, the more you do for people, often that's encouraged. I remember being interrupted a lot, the kind of the reactive nature of HR work, people coming in and needing your help there and then. And you kind of, you don't mind, you still get paid, right? And it's part of your job to be serving other employees. Whereas in business, you have to be much more selective because you only get paid for the results that you create. You don't just get paid for being there and necessarily helping or answering to others. Okay, so I would love to hear one key success, so accomplishment, and one key learning that you would like to share.
I think success would be the work that I do with my clients. It's really fulfilling to see that first time, that light bulb moment for myself when I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. And this is what I know, no matter what. There will be ups and downs, but I'm going to be happy doing this and it's going to be fulfilling and I'm going to make it work and I'll figure it out, right? I think that happens when you really figure out what is it that you want to do and get that clarity. And to help others through that, I feel that's my biggest achievement. I think that's, when I talk about meaningful work, I think that's meaningful to me. And that makes everything else worth it because I know, okay, fine. It's taken a while to get to that stage where I have regular clients, but it's been worth it all. And even now, there are months that are good, there are months that are not good, but it's still worth it. In terms of the learning, it's just the fact that not everything is perfect. Initially, when you're one woman show where you're doing all of it yourself, I know I have spent time on tasks which is not necessarily the ones that is going to get me the result that I really need. But it's more of the busy work. Figuring that out has been a learning that, kind of getting that priority right and getting that action plan right. So that's been my biggest learning, to know that you're not going to be able to do it all. So you have to be able to prioritize and you have to be able to zoom in on what's going to get you results based on what you want. And I'm still learning that, to be honest.
Finally, I would love to get your view on the current entrepreneurial landscape and how women are shaping and navigating entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial reality based on your experience. I know you run your own networking events for women. What insights do you have?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I used to hate networking. And I realized, as a woman getting into business, in corporate as well, who want to grow, networking is a very, very important part of your career, which we cannot ignore. So I decided that, okay, I have to jump in, get into the deep end and, figure out how to swim through it. I attended a networking event called Ladies Who Latte, which Liverpool Street in London and London Bridge. And I really enjoyed the vibe. And then I decided, I live in Greenwich in London, and decided I want to start something for Greenwich. And it's been amazing. It is so inspiring to meet so many women doing such amazing work, to see what's driving them, what their why is, what's been their challenges, how they have grown. To just be in that shared space is just motivating. Being around other people who've going through a similar journey really can help to motivate us forward, inspire us on. We meet up to share ideas, share best practices, share learnings, motivate each other. We have something called the hot seat. So every month we try and brainstorm and see how we can help, those kind of things. So more and more women are realizing that they don't really fit into the corporate world because of flexibility, because of some of the laws with returning to work, the policies that are there doesn't help them have a life where they can actually have a family, grow, be ambitious and be driven and grow to a position where they can actually do what's meaningful to them and not get burnt out. A lot of women are realizing what they're passionate about and what's possible for them. And they are making that shift to entrepreneurship. That's definitely on the rise. On the other hand, there have been changes where there has been support as well, some funding that's coming up every now and then for women in entrepreneurship. So that's maybe been a driving factor. I don't know, but I see a lot of women making that shift. A lot of women who are in the 30s, 40s who reach that point and they're like, you know what, I need to do something that I'm not going to get burnt out by, and it's going to be meaningful to me. So they are. That's definitely on the rise.
These are great insights. I think women realizing their corporate world hasn't really been built for them. It doesn't fit to our natural way of doing things over the desire for meaningful work. Yeah, trying to find a different way. Thank you so much, Sanjukta, for a really honest and insightful conversation. Really appreciate your time.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Maria. It's been really good to chat as always.